We had another crazy week of college football action, which means it was a great opportunity for some of these NFL draft eligible prospects to help their stock. So let's talk about some of these performances. Of course, starting with the game we did a watch along for, Georgia, Tennessee, and I'm talking about Oscar Delp, because finally, Mr. Delp decided to show up this year. Like, holy moly, he ends up getting 4 receptions, 2 of which were touchdowns, and 56 yards. Even had a big, I think it was a 3rd down, but they put like Arian Smith in motion, which basically gave Delp a one-on-one with, I can't remember if it was a safety or a linebacker, and he just mossed him. And I'm like, where's this Delp been all year? Where have you been all year? Where have you been my whole life? And I think I'm going to be doing this video later this week talking about some prospects I think should return for another year of college football, because Oscar Delp is a true junior. He's a true junior. He's got another year of eligibility, and I think there's some meat he's leaving on the bone if he decides to come out, because the dude is a phenomenal athlete. He has shown yak ability. He's shown really good versatility. He might not be Brock Bowers, which some people coming into the year thought he could be. I think I had him in my top 50. And again, he hasn't really taken that jump, you know? He just hasn't. But I think at 6'5", 245, the level of physicality he plays with, because, hey, if you're going to play tight end for Georgia, you got to have a little bit of that dog in you. I think he can be a high prospect. He just hasn't done enough this year to warrant that. So I do think he's coming back, but I do got to give a shout out to him because, hey, you finally showed up this season. The man didn't have a touchdown all year. He decided to come in this game and have 2 of them. And dude, let's talk about Benjamin Urasek finally showing up as well. The former Stanford transfer, the other tight end there. Like Georgia, they have an embarrassment of riches at tight end because they also got Lucky, number 7 there, who early in the season was like, wait, is this their like tight end one? What's going on? Like Urasek had, for one, I think he's been the best blocking tight end for Georgia. And for 2, he had essentially what sealed the game for Georgia, which allowed them to go up 2 scores. The run after catch to get them at like the 1 or the 2 yard line again, and then they proceed to go up 2 scores. After that, you had a wonderful performance by the Georgia offensive line, or at least the interior, like Jared Wilson. You had Tate Ratledge really just mopping the floor with that scary Tennessee defensive front, and essentially allowed Carson Beck not to get sacked. Like Beck did. Hey, we got to shout out Beck. Beck probably had his best game of the season. He maneuvered the pocket really well, but he was helped out by that offensive line. Didn't get sacked, opposed to Nico, who got sacked like 5 times in that game, as the Bulldogs just kept bringing pressure. But it was a good day to be a Bulldog. Man. They had a really good showing. But let's keep this sucker moving. Let's keep this sucker rolling. And let's go to Notre Dame versus Virginia. Rylie Mills, baby. Rylie Mills, someone who I really liked coming into the year. And I'm kind of like in a weird place with Rylie Mills, because like you look at that 295. He's like, oh, he's a little undersized, but he's 6'5". He can add mass along that frame. He's long, and he really got to come out and perform and show out with I think Howard Cross was out this game with a leg injury. So he came in and was like, don't worry, I'll take care of the pass rush. Had 6 pressures. He had a defensive stop. Had a pass rush win rate of 14.8%, which if you didn't know, that's pretty good for a defensive interior. And Rylie Mills is kind of in this 3rd and 4th round area. Some people might even have a 5th round grade on him, but I believe in the talent because the dude is long. He is strong, even though he is sub 300. He anchors really well. He's got good lateral movement, plays very low, plays with leverage, but just doesn't have like the craziest get off, doesn't really have a assortment of pass rush tools, not going to be like the bendiest guy, but like he is just, you look at him and you're like, he is solid. I want him in my rotation. And that's where I'm at with Rylie Mills. Again, having a really good game against that Virginia team. Like, don't sleep on Virginia. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're out here fighting for bowl eligibility. That's a word. Eligibility. I think they're still sitting at like 5-5, right? Let's take a quick gander at Virginia football record, as they are indeed 5-5. So they are looking, one more win makes them bowl eligible. And they close the year out with Virginia and Virginia Tech. I honestly think both those games are quite winnable. I know SMU is kind of a train right now. As good luck stopping that offense. But hey, I'm just gonna say, don't sleep on the Cavaliers. They're playing fun football there in Charlottesville. Everybody loves the NFL draft, and I know you want to be familiar with every potential prospect that your team may draft. So I got good news for you. My draft guide is available for purchase. It is good throughout the entire draft cycle, and it updates through the season regularly. You'll get my current evals and rankings on hundreds of different players with player backgrounds and analytics. It also contains combine and pro day numbers, as well as my notes from the Senior and Shrine Bowl. You can purchase it for a one-time payment of $30 on PayPal, Venmo, and now I have the Cash App. Follow the link in the description and be sure to include your email because it is a Google spreadsheet. That is how I share it with you. So please don't make me hunt down your email. Just don't do it. Anywho, it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. But let's move on to Mike Green. More people need to be talking about Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. He's coming in at 6'4", 248, and I'm going to be honest, he might be closer to like 240 than he is to 250. Because sometimes he just looks like a linebacker, but he also moves like a linebacker. I think he could be someone that sneaks into the first round. I really do. He's a top 50 prospect for me, easy. I might even move him up more. I like him that much. I really do. And he had a huge game against Coastal Carolina. 9 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 defensive stops, which if you're unfamiliar, a defensive stop, that's just a play in the run game that results in either a loss or no gain. He had a forced fumble. He had a win rate of 31.7%. And you're like, oh, of course he's doing this to the group of 5. No, he had a phenomenal game against Ohio State earlier in the year. And this is Ohio State with Josh Simmons. Mike Green's a legit prospect. He's legit. More people need to be talking about him. I think he just made it in Dane Brugler's top 50. I've been on this guy the whole year since coming into, well, that's not true. Because I think I watched him after the season opener against, was it Virginia? It wasn't Virginia. Can't recall now. But get on this guy. If you haven't watched him, watch him. He's hella fun. Hella fun. All right, let's move on. Let's talk offensive line. As Wyatt Milum, for the first time this year, actually gave up some pressure. He gave up 5 pressures against Baylor. This was on 54 passing snaps. Because let's be honest, they were trailing this whole game. They didn't win the game, obviously, but they were down by a large margin, so they were having to throw the football a ton. So that does put a lot of, unfortunately, unnecessary pressure on your offensive line if you're going to be coming out trying to get these chunk plays, just trying to rally back in the game. So Milum wasn't put in an ideal position. I still think he played a good game. Again, you're playing a Baylor team who, hey, watch out. Baylor's not been terrible this year. And you're going against, oh my gosh, the former LSU DC. I can't remember his name now off the top of my head. Is what it is. But this dude's coaching for his life. He runs actually a good defense. I've never really believed like defense has been like the problem. It's been like offensively, they can't really find consistency at quarterback there for Baylor. But I thought Milum did a solid job. It wasn't what we've been used to because, well, he allowed 5 pressures opposed to 0, but he didn't play a bad game. He He's 6'6", 317. Some people are going to be curious about the length because it does look like he has a bit shorter arms. So some teams might have him in there as guard. I think he'll be fine to play at tackle at the next level. This is someone that you've seen maybe float around as someone that could sneak into the back end of the first round. I firmly got him in that top 50 mix. But did want to give a little shout out to Milum here, as this dude hadn't allowed a sack, still hasn't allowed a sack this year, but hadn't allowed even a pressure coming into this game, and we're already late into the college football season. So maybe this is more so giving Baylor a shout out. But the dude played 93 snaps in this game. That's utterly ludicrous. Utterly ludicrous. The guy's having a great year. All right, let's move on. And I'm going to stick with the offensive line. Armand Membou is just flying up my board. I had him as like a midday 2. I think he might jump into the top 50. He's been that good this season. And mind you, he did this against South Carolina. So he took on the likes because he currently plays tackle. People maybe peg him as a guard at 6'3", 314. But I think he can make it a tackle because he's that good of an athlete. He is that good of an athlete. You love the movement skills. I think he's got elite athleticism. There's some things maybe he can work on in terms of like hand placement, footwork, but that's fine. He can learn that at the next level. But he had a phenomenal outing, allowed only 1 pressure, no sacks, and he did this against the likes of Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard, who's someone that's been talked about in the top 50 for some people. Mind you, Dylan Stewart, this game, pass rush win rate, 7.4%. Kyle Kennard, win rate, 3.4%. Membou was phenomenal. He was seeing either one of those two every snap of the ball game. And all he did was win. All I do is win no matter what. I got Membou on my mind and I just can't get enough. This guy is probably, for me, might shoot in the top 50. I don't know. I might rework some things with my rankings this week. Move up some guys that have really, they're just really doing well. I don't know. Maybe I'll stay put for a little bit, but I'm doing some new evals this week, which, hey, we'll talk about that near the end of the video because I got a few new names. But let's keep rolling. I'm going to move on to TJ Sanders. I want to stick with the same game, right? TJ Sanders, I've talked about him quite a bit actually this year. But I think he's someone that probably deserves to be in this top 50 discussion, which is kind of wild because this defensive interior class is absolutely bonkers. So for one, obviously you're looking at 6'4", 290. Okay. Sanders, a little undersized, but 290, not terrible. If he was like 280, then we'd be like huffing and puffing. Like, I don't know if this guy can stick on the interior. But 290, he's fine. But the dude's a monster. He had 6 pressures, 3 defensive stops, had a sack, had a win rate of 11.5%. Again, not terrible number, especially considering how well the Mizzou offensive line did play. But mind you, Sanders was up against the backup center for Missouri, though they had their starters at guards, but because if you didn't know, the Mizzou center also kind of a formidable prospect in his own right, Connor Tolson. He missed this game. He's actually out for the rest of the season with a knee injury. So he was taken. There were some points where he was taken on the backup center. So best believe, yeah, they were trying to protect that guy, essentially giving him help. But I mean, there's only so much you could do against a line that consists of like a Dylan Stewart, a Kyle Kennard. You go to the interior, you got TJ Sanders. Another guy that's not really talked about is Tonka Hemingway. They're on that defensive front for the Gamecocks. But Sanders is kind of the star there, in my opinion, because like no one has a bigger motor on that defensive line as TJ Sanders. The dude just gets after it. He is kind of a silky smooth athlete. Might not be like the most explosive or the fastest athlete on that defensive line, but he is certainly smooth. He does a good job of kind of like setting up his pass rushes. But I wanted to give him a shout out because I feel like he gets kind of lost in just the discussion of guys like Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, Deion Walker. You got Shamar Stewart, Tyleik Williams, Derek Harmon. I mean, there's a ton of guys that you just see Sanders' name not get talked about, I think, nearly enough. All right, let's move on to Omarion Hampton. Yes, a name you should be very familiar with. Had a huge game against Wake Forest. And I just want to kind of come out and say, if this isn't your running back 2, and I'm going to be honest, if you have him at running back 1, I don't think I mind. I don't. Because he's been that good this year. And at 6'1", 220, with the type of like straight line speed he has, like the burst, I get it. He's easy to fall in love with. But if your top 2 running backs aren't Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, and I get it, it's a good running back class, but these two have just better than the rest. They just are. Like, let's talk about Omarion Hampton potentially being a first rounder. You want to talk about first round running backs? Like, if you're not new to the channel, you know me. I'm not a big fan of running backs in the first round, but now we're seeing the pendulum swing the other way when it comes back to, okay, maybe it's not so much of a passing league. All these teams are playing too high. Let's take advantage of these light boxes with the run game. Running backs are starting to get back into fashion, baby. And if you need one, Omarion Hampton could be a very good option. I think this is someone that could sneak into the back end of the first round in a relatively lighter draft class in terms of talent. At least that's how most people are going to be viewing it. I mean, it's not like last year's. Last year's was kind of studded. The draft class as a whole. But like Hampton, I think legitimately has a shot to sneak into the first round. He has been that good. Like, honestly, if your first 2 running backs aren't Jeanty, Hampton, I don't care the order, but if they're not those 2 guys, I don't know what we're doing here. It's essentially those 2 guys and the rest of the class. Hampton, phenomenal. I didn't even mention him in this game. Like, his average yards of contact after contact was like 5 yards. He had 35 carries, 244 yards, had a touchdown, did have a fumble, but 5 receptions for 16 yards. So it didn't do a lot, but he's shown he could run the basic running back route tree and create something similar to like what Breece Hall was at Iowa State. So, man, I don't know. I am gonna need a cigarette after that. Okay, let's talk about some lesser known names. We're gonna start with Pat Bryant, as I feel like a lot of people probably already know about Pat Bryant at Illinois. But I feel like there might be some people out there that don't. Pat Bryant's been having a great year for the Illini. This game against Michigan State, which Illinois just slapped Michigan State. He had 4 receptions for 135 yards, had the touchdown. He's coming in at 6'3", 200 pounds. He is a true senior. And you love the frame. He's a tough runner. Like, he's shown that after the catch. He's been really good after the catch. Just tough to bring down. The route running's there. Like, the question is he anything more than a possession receiver? Because you look at the speed, you look at the explosiveness, and you're like, it's fine. So I guess he's just kind of like, he's going to be a consistent, like, contested catch guy. And fortunately enough, he's been really good at the contested catch. He really has, man. He can be that jump ball guy. But, like, if you let him get, like, rolling, like long striding, then watch out, right? Just watch out. And I feel like I've brought it up his name. No, I think, okay, so anytime we talk about someone that might not, that maybe has that long speed at wide receiver, but isn't like the most explosive, or like not the most explosive guy. Someone that, though, you think could really win at the contested catch, but you also like what they can do from an intermediate to vertical perspective as a route runner with that long speed. You think Nico Collins. I brought in his name up when we talk about Trey Harris, because Trey Harris is also not exactly an elite level athlete. And Pat Bryant, I'm not going to say is like in the could be in the same discussion there, but like maybe we should maybe I should start talking about him as a third rounder. Like I was talking with Alex from Hail Mary Sports, and I just don't have an affinity for these possession guys. Like they're just not my cup of tea at wide receiver, unfortunately. But when you could create after the catch, then I start to like it quite a bit, even if you are just that possession wide receiver. Like for me, like Jaden Higgins and Pat Bryant are kind of in this same realm of receiver for me, that I will acknowledge more people are higher on those guys than I am. And again, it just comes down to like, that's just not my cup of tea, I suppose. Just not. Now let's talk about a lesser known receiver. I was pretty high on him coming into the year. Elijah Badger out of Florida had a phenomenal game against LSU. Ended up going for 6 receptions for 131 yards. Had a touchdown. I think the touchdown was on stamps. But he had some good reps against Zion Alexander, the other LSU corner there, who is getting some love as a potential day 2 prospect for some people. I don't know. I'm going to sit down and try to watch the tape this week if I have the time. But Badger had himself a game, which thank freaking goodness. Like I feel like he doesn't get enough love, enough shine. And I really thought he was going to take on the like Ricky Pearsall role when he showed up at Florida, but they gave that to who's the other cat's name? Ray Wilson or something. I know that they're pretty high on him. Or is it like a Eugene Wilson? I can't remember. I don't think he's draft eligible. That's why I can't remember. But like Badger was coming from Arizona State, man. And I loved what he can do after the catch. Like he's more of a fluid athlete than he is someone that's like gonna burn you. He just doesn't have speed like that. It's more it's more build up speed for him, you know. And he was coming from an offense that at Arizona State where he wasn't asked to run a ton of routes. It was like slants, goes, and screens. And that's where he became this yak machine. And he hasn't really gotten to showcase that yak ability here in Florida, but he has shown the ball skills. He has shown, hey, I'm a smooth athlete. I can create separation. I can get open. But if it's a contested catch, I can do that as well. So Badger, I'm liking that he's finally getting some shine in this offense. It's been something like we've seen the last like month with him, because I think the other receiver there has been hurt. And I know Florida, they've kind of had some dismay. Billy Napier, is he going to get fired? No, the team's fighting hard for him. Looks like he's going to stick around another year. But I'm happy that Badger, during this tumultuous time there for Florida, that Badger's able to like step up and kind of be a beacon here for the Gators in the passing game. Now, the final player I want to talk about had a stellar game this week against Syracuse, and that is Nohl Williams, corner out of Cal. And this might be a name you should get to know. I don't know if he's going to get day 2 love, because I do think he's an older prospect, but he's 6'1", 200 pounds. And for one, you should already know the name, because this dude, I think he currently leads college football in interceptions with 7. And he had a pick 6 against Cam Ward, which, that's what put him on my radar. My Miami Hurricanes. Pick 6, gotta love it. But yeah, he's kind of been a nightmare in coverage for the opposing team, and I was like, I know I gotta sit down and watch this guy. And now he's coming off a big week against Syracuse, which he didn't necessarily have the interception, but they tried to target him. And this was a Syracuse team that they can move the ball hella well. And they tried to target him quite a bit, and he was targeted 10 times, allowed 5 receptions, which, hey, that's a 50% completion rate. I'll take it. But he only allowed her for like 49 yards. He had 2 pass breakups, 8 tackles. This guy's very active in the run game. So I went ahead and it was like, okay, let's dive into some more tape with him, because he's been studded this year. And if you're unfamiliar with him, he's from the 2020 recruiting class. He was only a 3-star recruit. He ends up going to UNLV, and he's actually a full-time starter there for 3 years before he decides to transfer to Cal last season. He was a full-time starter there last year. Actually had a really solid year. But this year was kind of that next step where, okay, no, Now he's looking like a stud. Like, the ball skills have always been there for him. I mentioned the 7 interceptions. He has 14 throughout his career, 18 pass breakups over his career. The guy's got the ball skills, but he's also got a good anticipation, whether it is and I firmly believe he might be more of a press man guy in the NFL, but like, he's shown to be good in zone. Like, there's this play, I went to the Pittsburgh game, and he's playing essentially like he's in like quarters coverage, right? And he's looking at the guy that's coming in on what seemingly is a screen. But he's also very aware, hey, there might be something downfield next to me if they don't go out to the screenplay quickly. They didn't go to the screenplay quickly, so he immediately turns around to go make a play in the end zone. He's looking for that, okay, there must be something going on behind me. We turn around, let's take a look. Oh, I found that. On top of that, he's like watching the quarterback's eyes, like, all right, he's not throwing this screen. He's looking my way. He's not throwing this screen. I'm going to start darting down the field. Makes a play in the end zone. Interception on, I think it wasn't even the guy that got behind him. I think it was someone that was coming on a crosser, but he's shown good coverage instincts to be aware of what's going on around him, and just staring down, like, he can look at the quarterback's eyes and be like, okay, what are you trying to tell me here? So, but I still do prefer him in press coverage, even man coverage, because he might not be like an elite level athlete. Like, I don't think he's got elite speed, but he's a fluid athlete, very greasy hips, good foot speed, and he shows really good recovery speed. Like, you go to the San Diego State game, because here's maybe a little nitpick at the top of routes. Sometimes for a guy that has that many interceptions, you probably can suspect, there'll be times where he might get got because he's looking to bite. And I think he did bite in this regard. This receiver took him across the formation, but he showed the recovery speed to actually get out in front of the ball and make the interception. So, like, the dude's a playmaker. He's got versatility. Like, he's got return experience out the wazoo, dating back to his time with in high school. But he has a kick return touchdown this season, on top of the pick 6. He's played quite a bit in the box over his career, and he's actually been a sure tackler throughout his whole career. This season, a 5.3% missed tackle rate. That's really, really good. And he's someone that's learned to be more discreet with his hands in press coverage and throughout the route. Like, he plays with that necessary physicality, but he's learned to reel it back. Like, you go back to like 2022, his last year at UNLV, he was like flagged 8 times. Since then, he's only been flagged 7 times over the last 2 years. Granted, it'll be something you're gonna have to watch out for in the NFL, like where penalties get called maybe a little bit more. They're not gonna let you get away with as much. But man, like, Williams is someone definitely to freaking watch out for. I hope he gets like a Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl invite. But let me know who are some of your favorite prospects that played this week. There was a lot of college football. There's only so many people I can cover, and I wanted to throw maybe a couple of names you haven't heard of yet. But go ahead, do that YouTube thing. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below, because we have that beautiful, intimate football discourse down there. And hey, I'm trying to make a mock draft for later today, so be on the look for that. But as always, until next time, be easy, my friends. Later.